So Wolf-PAC, of course, is busy trying to get a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics, to get free and fair elections, to have a convention to do so. Now that is an Article 5 convention. It's in the Constitution. It says there's two ways to get a convention. I'm sorry, to get an amendment. One is through Congress. Good luck. You're going to get 2/3 of this Congress, or 2/3 of the states to call for a convention where you propose an amendment. So we're going to the states. So now we go to Hawaii, and there we are met with a wall of lobbyists. So now you would think, okay, I remember in New Jersey, it was the Koch brothers lobbyists that you guys had to fight and a lot of right-wingers. Well, in Hawaii, it is so-called progressive groups that have sent their lobbyists because apparently they don't want change either. Oh my God, what if we had change? Oh, convention would bring change. Oh, hand-wringing. Good news about Hawaii is, unlike in New Mexico, they have principal politicians. I'm sorry, that's not fair to New Mexico. There's wonderful politicians in New Mexico, and we passed one of the in one of the houses in New Mexico. But in one of the other houses, the lobbyists convinced them to not put it up for a vote. So it depends on the person. But in Hawaii, in the Senate side, bunch of great folks in this committee who were there, who actually, this is what I love about it. They actually took the time to hear both sides out. Now, we had our volunteers, citizens who live in Hawaii. So Eric Schrager, for example, is a Navy vet, and here's one of the things that he said.
As a commissioned officer in the US Navy for over 30 years, I proudly upheld the oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. A powerful domestic enemy has been identified. It is the influence of big money in our government. Large donations to political campaigns and the quid pro quo evidenced by government action and inaction indicates that our democracy is being subverted. Now,
that is not a controversial position. Close to 90% of Americans agree that money is a corrupting influence on politics. And you would think that we'd have an easier time of it, but no, they're gonna run into those aforementioned lobbyists. First, I'm just showing you one, but we had many volunteers there testify, including Morgan Bonet, who's a mechanical engineer with NASA telescope, real Americans that are out there fighting the good fight. Well, they ran into some folks from the other side. But what was great is that the senators had a back and forth and they heard him out. One of the real heroes of this story, and I want to show you who he is. Let's go to graphic 45 here. Senator Gilbert Keith Aguirre. He is one of the senators from Hawaii, and what I like about him is that he's got an open mind. And in that committee, even the one person who voted against it asked great questions. But Aguirre listened, asked thoughtful questions and did exactly what you're supposed to do in a democracy, have a vote. I'll just give you a small clip from Aguirre here, but it's a good point.
Isn't sort of the arguments that are being made kind of fundamentally distrusting the public then?
See, I love that because when the other side says, well, I mean, if you have a convention, I mean, all of a sudden it's not Congress that's in charge. You went around them, you went to the states. Okay, but that's why it's in the Constitution, because we thought maybe Washington would get too corrupt, right? Second of all, you say, oh, well, I mean, imagine if the right wing had a convention. Imagine if the right wing voted. Imagine if the right wing could participate in Congress. Well, when you say, if the right wing can do it, we shouldn't do it at all, that is distrusting the public opinion. That means you don't really believe in democracy. Now, he put it more gently and in a more intellectual light, and I appreciate it. But it's a great point. But we're nowhere near done yet. Now we're going to go to Senator Laura Thielen. She's going to be talking now. There's two people here. They are in fact lobbyists. They're for the ACLU and Common Cause. So you might be surprised by the ACLU position. And in Common Cause, you won't be surprised for. They're the group pretending to be progressive who doesn't want a convention, who hasn't done anything to try to actually get an amendment to get money out of politics. And of course, they're fighting anyone trying to do that in reality, and here in this committee in Hawaii. So let's watch.
So I guess what I want to ask is, for your two organizations, if you don't support the Constitutional Convention, what are your plans to getting the ruling of Citizen United overturned?
You want to play it? Yeah, so actually the ACLU does not necessarily oppose everything about the ruling in Citizens United. It's an unpopular position, but we We do support parts of it. It's a very complicated 184-page decision that I have not read since law school. Please don't quiz me on it. But our position is a little bit more nuanced than I think some of the other organizations in the room. So I think Corey might be able to better answer your questions.
Yes. We are opposed to Citizens United, and in fact, we've worked with you folks in the past to pass 2 resolutions calling on Congress to show us, to introduce an amendment that way, which is what we do support. So we are ahead of the curve, and we are working across with our sister chapters and with other organizations to go that route as well. It's not the fastest route. It's, given the political climate in Congress, lawmaking in general is not, fastest route in anything, but like with other past amendments in the past, right, whether it's women's voting or whatnot, it took many, many years, many voices, and persistence and not giving up.
But I mean, it is a pretty powerful argument that given Citizens United, the influence of money on campaigns is bigger than ever, and on policy outcomes, and how do we rely on Congress to change a law as opposed to going directly to people?
Well, I mean, for us, Common Cause, campaign finance reform is not just a single issue, it's a multi-pronged issue. So I just don't think that the Article 5 convention is the silver bullet that some folks are making it out to be.
So Senator Thielen did not vote with us, but I really appreciated her intellectual honesty. So unfortunately, there are some representatives in other states that don't exhibit that, and we call that out too. And oftentimes they don't allow a vote, and they don't really want a debate on this issue. But I thought Senator Thielen did a great job there in asking these questions. So when she asked the ACLU, what was the answer she got? Oh, actually, the ACLU is in favor of Citizens United. Although that particular person had not read the decision, apparently. That's unfortunate. I don't know if you knew that. Then when you went to the Common Cause lobbyist, well, she said that they were ahead of the curve in fighting to get money out of politics. Really, how so? Because the senator asked you, how are you doing it? Well, we're asking Congress. Oh, really, how's that going? Well, we've been fighting on this issue for 40 years. How is that going? So there is no actual plan by Common Cause to get money out of politics. They are not fighting actively in Congress through any other means. What are they doing? They're fighting against the one path that could actually get us there, the convention, because they say, oh, it's not a silver bullet. It's not a silver bullet, it's not magic. I mean, look, these things take a long time, so let's just sit around for another couple of decades and see what happens. We didn't say it was a silver bullet. We said, unfortunately, it is a path that is available to us when everything else is foreclosed. And it is obviously so, and you guys know it because you're not really doing anything about it anyway. Okay, now we go to a name you might recognize, Senator Gabbard. Remember, this is Hawaii. It is Senator Mike Gabbard, yes, the father of Tulsi Gabbard. He has a very interesting conversation with these same folks. Let's watch.
Every time we begin our session and during session, we talk about having a conversation about the 3,000 plus bills every year that are introduced, right? And so what I'm hearing, and you mentioned a silver bullet. I didn't pick up on that from the people who were testifying to revert to the original version. But what I'm hearing is, what's wrong with having this conversation? This national conversation. What's wrong with having this conversation? Is there a lack of faith in the democracy, this wonderful country that we live in, to have the conversation?
Senator, I think that's a great question, and I think both my organization and Corey's would agree that the conversation is always a good thing, and to be talking about the political influence of money is especially important in this day and age, and what we're seeing at the federal level. So I think the conversation is very important. A convention is very different from a conversation. A convention would change our Constitution upon which this country is built.
Well, you see, when you amend the Constitution, yes, it is an amendment, right? So that changes it. For example, the 13th, 14th, and 15th amendments to the Constitution change the Constitution so that African Americans could be considered citizens. The First Amendment changed the Constitution so we could have freedom of speech freedom of press, assembly, et cetera, the things that the ACLU I thought was structured to fight for. So she's like, I mean, we're gonna have a conversation as long as we don't do anything about it. God forbid we should do what's in the Constitution. Remember the ACLU for the Constitution. Curious. So I want to give a shout out to Senator Mike Gabbard again. He's been an absolute hero on this, fighting for this for 3 years, asking great questions, probing, again, intellectual honesty, having a real debate, thinking it through, coming to his own conclusions. Wonderful, and voted in favor of it again here in this committee hearing. And finally, we go to Carl Rhodes, Senator Rhodes, with a great question to the Common Cause lobbyist, and wait till you get a load of her answer.
There's also just a sense of nothing ventured, nothing gained. You're gonna take a risk. If we don't do anything, we take a risk. If we do something, we take a risk. But I'm looking for the risk, for the downside risk, and I don't know if I see it. Would you care to comment on that?
I'll try. Yeah, I mean, it is just basically a complicated issue, and there is risks either way. I agree. But for us, it's weighing these risks. Do we want to risk potentially rewriting the whole Constitution? Again, this is what happened with our founding fathers with the...
Yeah, but that turned out so badly. I mean, you know.
Well, it depends who you ask, right?
Does it? Oh my God, does it depend who you ask? So their big fear tactic is, oh my God, we had one constitutional convention and it created the United States Constitution, the greatest document ever written. Well, it depends on who you ask. Does it? So think about it. First of all, they're wrong on the facts as usual. Again, it's amazing how little research that they do. The Constitutional Convention was actually asked for by the states. They knew that they had a problem with the Articles of Confederation. A majority of the states asked to rewrite the document. So it is a myth that they went rogue and rewrote it, et cetera. And in fact, it had to get ratified. New York did not allow for their delegates, for example, to overturn the whole Constitution. So in the beginning, they voted no within the convention. And Alexander Hamilton, which represented New York, signed as a citizen and not as the delegate from New York. And New York later had to ratify it. It went through a process. They don't have their history right at all. Second of all, it was a constitutional convention. And again, the states asked for it to be that. An Article 5 convention is totally different. It is for the purpose of an amendment. I would say they know that and they're being misleading, but there's some chance they don't even know that. They don't know the basics of what they're arguing about. The Article 5 convention is part of the Constitution. Remember, the founding fathers wrote the Constitution and they said, hey, we are revolutionaries, so we're gonna build revolution into the document. We're gonna give you several different ways to amend this document, and one of them is an Article 5 convention where you propose specific amendments. So she said, well, I don't know, that sounds scary. The Constitution sounds pretty scary. Now, she said both sides do have problems. What's the other side? The other side is the disaster that we live in today, where money has completely taken over politics, where we have legalized bribery, where they say such absurd things as corporations are human beings and money is speech, and we've all agreed to these fantasies. Of course, 90% of us have not, but Congress has. We're bathed in corruption right now. We've lost our democracy. And they say, but what if something scary happens? No, something scary already happened. And then when asked about the Constitution, well, I don't know, it could go either way. I mean, some would say that it didn't turn out well. I would argue that it turned out really, really well. And you want to foreclose that option? I think that is crazy. Luckily, the senators from Hawaii there in that committee agreed. Let me show Senator Carl Rhodes, by the way, another hero, founding fathers and mothers who voted for this resolution, okay? Now, it goes to the full Senate. So Hawaii at wolf-pac.com, get in the fight, okay? So you see that? Those guys that I showed you from our side, they're not paid lobbyists, they're volunteers. You get involved in this, you go speak to senators, and you can beat those lobbyists. Warriors always beat mercenaries. You actually care, you cared to learn the facts. That's why you win, that's why you win whenever there's a vote. We're gonna win in Hawaii, we're gonna go and win in the Senate, and then they're gonna go to a committee, and I hope that we pass the whole state so that I can give credit to the entire legislation and legislators of Hawaii. And it is one of the most progressive states, and of course it should be on board for real change and to get money out of politics and to get free and fair elections. We're on that road thanks to Senator Keith Ageron and the others. So let's keep it going. Hawaii at wolf-pac.com. Let's win. I told you we could do it, and we're in the middle of doing it right now. Young Turks. If you're a member of the Young Turks, you not only get the whole 2-hour Young Turks show on demand anytime you want, ad-free, but you also get so many other shows. Old School, you'll love it. Aggressive Progressive for guys who are true progressives. Now also Nerd Alert for gaming and tech. What to Flick for movie reviews. You will love it. Check it out right now at tytnetwork.com/join.